Hey guys, this is Phil. I want to talk to you a little bit about how to create tileable textures in Photoshop. Now, you can find tileable textures in a lot of places these days. You can go into stock sites and you can find some there. A lot of CDs are available for purchase. But, there's definitely the need to know how to go about doing this because, maybe there's a texture you need to take a photo of, or maybe you find the perfect texture and it's not tileable. How do you go about doing that? So I've got my ways of doing this. There's a lot of different ways of doing it for sure, but thought I'd walk through just the steps that I take. Now I've got this asphalt texture here, and looking at it, it's doesn't look too bad, but let me go ahead and show you what happens whenever I want to tile this thing. Let me double my canvas size here, and I'll show you what this looks like when I repeat it. So let me drag some copies here and down here as well. Now, what you're probably noticing, let me turn this off here, is you got these dark areas. You get them here, up in the left-hand corner of this image. There's a dark area. This could have been just how the texture was shot with the flash, or maybe it's a stain. Who knows? There's also a light band kind of running across this image here. And when you start repeating this thing, several times, these things are really going to start standing out, and it's the believability of this texture is going to fall apart. So, getting there and kind of cleaning these things up is good practice. So, let me jump back here to our image and walk you through this. So, one of the first things you want to do is use the offset filter. Now, this one's buried, so go to filter and go all the way down to other. And then the last thing here is offset. Let me set these things back to 0 and I'll show you what the offset does. Basically, it takes your layer, your image here, and it wraps your image, it offsets it along a horizontal or vertical axis. And so if I start shifting this thing horizontally here, you'll notice that the image is kind of shifting to the right. And 760 pixels, what it's doing is it's shifted this thing 760 pixels, and then whatever was here on the right is now over here on the left and meeting up with this left edge. And so what you're able to see is this dark area is really standing out now. And that's good. We want this to be about halfway in our image so we can get in here and kind of clean this up. And I also like to just work on one axis at a time. So by doing the horizontal, what we're going to do once we get in here and kind of take out some of these pieces is the left and right edges are going to be perfect. They're going to match up, and they'll be tileable. And then once we get this cleaned up, we'll jump into doing the vertical and basically repeat the same process. And at the end, we're going to have a tileable image. Now, cleaning up these parts, there's different ways you could do this. Now, rubber stamping is probably one of the most popular, and the rubber stamp tool is right here. And what this does is it basically you use a brush tool. Any of your brushes are available to you. But what you would do is you hold down the Option key and you make a source selection. So you hold down Option, you click somewhere, and then when you start brushing, it's copying based on where you sourced for the tool to look, and starts lifting and stamping that, copying that over onto another area. Now, this works great, but kind of a quick way that I like to jump into this is by using the patch tool. And the patch tool is right here, based on which version of CS 3, 4, 5, whatever you're using. It might be kind of up towards the top of the tool palette, I guess. I don't know exactly where it's located in all the different versions, but it's under the healing brush tool. This is what's going to show up by default, but if you expand that out, the patch tool is going to be buried under there. And you have some options here. I just kind of leave them at the default. And what I want to do is I want to draw a selection using the patch tool around this dark piece. I want to get rid of this. So just drawing here around this guy, trying to get all of it. Now I have a selection. Let me kind of zoom out here. And what I'm going to do is by clicking and holding click and drag inside this thing, you'll see that I'm moving around. I want to kind of keep my selection inside the bounds of my document, but anything where I'm dragging this is showing up in the old area. So I want to pick maybe this part here and let go. And what Photoshop did is it copied this area that I had dropped and dropped it here on my original selection. And if I deselect, kind of zoom in here, it not only copied the data, the selection, but it tried its best to blend that in with the area up here, as well as kind of match the tones a little bit. It does a fair job, but zooming up here, that's a little too far. But zooming up here, you're going to want to get in here and clean up some of these areas. You might want to make a selection here at this part, get rid of that dark area, and this part here, and just kind of keep doing this around. You might even want to get out the rubber stamp tool and fix some of this stuff as well. And again, it's a combination of tools here that you're wanting to use, but the patch tool works pretty good. It's kind of a quick fix, and then you want to use the rubber stamp or other options to get in there and really finesse and clean this thing up. But one thing I want to call out is this up here. Because I made a selection along the edge, when I do this patch tool, it kind of messes with the border of your image. So say we're done with the horizontal. Let's go back over here to our offset and set horizontal back to 0. And let's do the vertical now. Once I start bringing this down, you're going to see that this edge that got messed up is really standing out. And so we'll just do the same thing with the patch tool. Let's draw around this guy, and let's move it over here and make a selection there. And again, we're doing pretty good. There's still some cleanup here I want to do. Probably a little hard to see in the video, but I'm just looking for anywhere that I'm seeing some hard edges, or where some of these rocks that whenever this thing starts repeating, there's some big rocks or big noticeable areas. I may want to come in and just keep removing those out of this image and trying to clean it up as much as possible. Now again, you can use the rubber stamp tool, obviously. Use a soft edge tool. I sometimes like to use a textured brush to get a little bit more irregularity, especially if I'm doing something really rough and textured like this asphalt image. I want to get in here and kind of clean that up. I find that sometimes using a softer brush gives an unnatural look to something that's really textured. So I'm not done here. Obviously, I need to keep cleaning things up. But for all intents and purposes, right now, this is looking okay, and I do have a perfectly tileable image. But one thing you're probably noticing here is, let me zoom in. The top part of this image is pretty dark. The bottom half is pretty light. Now, cleaning that up, you could do all sorts of things. You could dodge and burn, and get creative with masking with different layer adjustments. But let me show you one technique that I have here. So I'm going to duplicate my layer, and I'm going to invert it. So Command J to duplicate, Command I to do an inversion. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blur this. So come down to my Gaussian blur. 12's pretty good. I usually tend to be a little bit larger with this than smaller on the blur. So that's fine. And I'm going to set this now to overlay. Now what this did is it evened out the tone of my image pretty considerably, and actually lightened it up a little bit. So might have to adjust that if we wanted this image to be dark to begin with. But it took, by making a copy and then inverting, that inversion made the dark, light, and the light darks, and flipped those around. And then by blurring, it kind of evened out, all of those, the tones and the lights and darks of that duplicated image. And then setting it back to overlay, it just kind of evens out the tone. We get this kind of neutral gray look. If I were to jump back here to our original, you can see this is what we were originally working with. This is what we have now. And again, if I wanted to make this a little bit darker, I can easily do that and kind of bring this back. But let me go ahead and flatten that, and then let's do this again. Let's increase our canvas size, and let's see how well this is repeating. So we'll make this canvas twice as big. Zoom this out here a little bit, and let's start copying this guy around. And you should see right now that this is starting to look pretty even. It's definitely kind of all one color. I'm not seeing any repeated edges. I am seeing a little bit of repeat in some of the elements. That's just because I I didn't take the time right now to go through and clean these things up, but I could easily have done that with the rubber stamp tool or whatever. And again, getting there, really finessing this. But I have a repeatable, tileable texture. It's pretty even. Again, finessing these tools, you can get an even better result. But that's done it. So I hope that was helpful. And yeah, thanks, guys.